Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now.
It's weird. The other day, somebody was like, does your kid actually listen to Slayer? And I was like, yeah, he does.
What's happening? Thank you so much for tuning into Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is a podcast where we talk to creatives, or I should say I talk to creatives, and you listen, I suppose. So it's a talking, listening kind of podcast, one of those audio things, where we talk to creative people that do more than one thing, or have had a varied career, or have had lots of different projects on their plate at one time or another, sometimes simultaneous, sometimes over a chronological time. And my guest today is a perfect example of what I would call a hyphenate. My guest today is the actor, art, curator, DJ, and I don't know, probably 10 other things in there too. Playlist maker, father of the year, Leo Fitzpatrick. I met Leo several years ago through friends of friends. When Dean and I started the band No Age, we were going to New York quite a bit. We figured out an easy way to get shows. I mean, back then, again, this becomes the old man moment, but tickets from LA to New York, you could get cheap, weird red eyes for like $200, round trip. And then if we could get $500 to play a show, or, do pass the hat or something, or play a couple shows, where each got, a couple $100 for each show, it would almost break even. So we figured out that it was worth our while to just, hop over to New York and crash on people's floors and borrow equipment. This was the, early to late aughts, and it was a lot of fun. And so we met Leo in some of those journeys through friends of friends. I think we even talked about it in the interview. I think Dean might have met him earlier out here in LA with other kind of skate friends. And so it was always cool. I was a huge fan of Kids growing up. We talk about it in the interview again. It was just this, kind of seminal 90s skateboard youth, media, I don't know, youth film, cultural movement that, I think was captured and disseminated, in ways that I felt were different than other movies. I think, we had it on like a bootleg VHS tape, like we would do with a lot of other skate videos and skate films, where somebody would get a copy and you'd have it for a day, you'd copy it to another VHS cassette. And I was like, this isn't really a skate movie, but it is. It's literally like a skate film. And it was awesome. So I first, was introduced to Leo through that. And then getting to know him in person, I realized, he's super funny dude, beyond charismatic, beyond talented, and always just like a joy to be around. I think we would DJ sometimes at different bars in New York, and Leo would be there. He would also be DJing or coming on after us or before us. And it was a strange time. I think I'd never expected, from small suburban Southern California to be in these cool, weird New York scenes or things, that seemed definitely far, far, far away from whatever I was doing. But it was always cool. And it was always a pleasure to talk to him and to get to count him, as a friend. So I think, I was thinking of lots of different friends and catching up this time of the year is always good for that kind of stuff. High school reunions, old, family reunions, just getting to see people around the holidays. And so I think these next couple episodes are going to be me catching up with some old friends and, just kind of seeing what they're up to, seeing what's going on. It's a little bit of a personal journey down the old memory lane. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing good. I hope they are staying safe and sane. I hope you're staying safe and sane this this 4th of July, this holiday Christmas season. I mean, I feel like what's more dangerous, 4th of July or Christmas? I mean, it could be lots of opportunities for danger around all kinds of corners. So, yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you to DistroKid for continuing to sponsor the show and hopefully figuring out what you're trying to do with your, unions and let your workers, unite and, maintain being a cool place for artists to upload their music. But, respecting sovereignty, respecting the collective bargaining rights of workers. Yeah, make it cool, make it work. Yeah, you can email me at hyphenatehalftime@gmail.com. Also find me on Instagram at Randy S. Randall. And you can also, you can find Leo on Instagram as well at Lousy Leo, LOUSYLEO on the Instagrams. Tell him I said what's up. Go there, check out what he's working on, what kind of art shows he's seeing, what kind of records he's spinning. His Sunday morning church records are some of my favorite things to see over the weekend. And without further ado, here comes Leo Fitzpatrick. Leo Fitzpatrick, thank you so much for coming on Hyphenate. How you doing, man?
I'm good. And yourself?
Good. How was your trip to LA? You were just here.
Oh, yeah, it was fast. It was only for 2 days.
Oh, okay.
So flew in Friday afternoon, left Sunday morning. So it was cool. I flew in for a friend's art show. My friend Nate Lohman had an opening at David Zorner Gallery, but I was able to catch a music show and do a studio visit with an artist I really like. So, I've always liked LA. You just have to surround yourself with good people and stay busy, and LA can be great. I'm not one of those LA haters, but
that's true about life. Keep busy, keep good people around you.
Yeah, I guess it's not LA specific, but
but no, LA can be a cesspool of garbage too if you know where to look.
Oh, sure, yeah. But it was cool.
I love when you said you were coming out. I realized I'm officially in that dad zone of just like, I got kids soccer games. I got breakfasts, pancake breakfast to do. Like, it sounds great. It sounds like you're gonna have a fun time in LA, on the dad vacation. Of whereas I was just like, oh, I'd love to come meet up or do something, but I'm like, I'm spoken for. My weekends are toast.
Oh yeah, I mean, me and my wife have it pretty dialed. Where like I'll go away for 2 or 3 days, and then she'll go away for 2 or 3 days, and it's tricky having a kid and trying to still have a sense of your own identity or your own life. And even my kid, like sometimes I feel like these kids, they don't realize like the way they have it with like both parents even being around, that's like a new thing.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that I can go and play soccer with my kid all day long is like pretty crazy. Like I grew up in the typical household where like dad worked and made money and mom also worked, but also had to do everything else, like basically my dad wasn't like a part of the picture, and one time my son asked me, he goes, hey, was your dad funny? I said, my dad wasn't even nice. What are you talking about funny? That's like a new thing that dads are even like nice.
Yeah.
Like dads are like curmudgeon-y, grumpy people that like hated their life. That was my experience.
I had one of those. I was always confused and pissed and mad about something.
You're mad about something, right?
Yeah.
So when my son doesn't understand that me and his mom have to like go to work to afford these luxuries, and we can't just simply give all our time to him. I have to like explain things a little to him,
That's our version of walking up the hill in snow both ways to and from school. It's like, hey, I'm smiling, I'm hugging you. You know what I smell like.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what my smile looks like, what my laugh sounds
weird.
like. Yeah.
I definitely have like a weird thing. Like it's sort of this weird thing in my house, like where my son like wants to kiss me on the lips, but I won't let him. And now it's just become this weird thing where he's like, "Why won't you let me do it?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. It's just strange. Like, just don't
Well,
do it."
well, your son's 24 years old. You have to explain to
Yeah,
him that that was cool
but
when he was little.
it's just so I do have some. I don't know if you call it like a carryover trait from growing up in like a cold environment, but uh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird. Like my kid's 8, and every night he crawls in bed with us. Still,
Oh,
like
it's great.
he and my
It's great.
wife hates it, but I'm like, in 4 more years he'll probably barely talk to us, let alone get in bed with us and
Yeah.
hang out with
There's a
his
finite
folks.
amount of time. Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time. It's so funny that it definitely feels like, I find myself having this conversation a lot with my wife where it's like, I know the dad I don't want to be. Like I don't, but it
Mm,
doesn't always mean I know the one I want to be. You know what I mean? I have a lot of like negative, or like not necessarily negative influence, but like the idea of like knowing who not to, having a bad influence isn't the same as having a good influence in the sense
right.
that like I don't do a lot of things that my dad did, but it doesn't necessarily mean I have active motivation to do the good things. I find myself almost like sometimes too passive or just sitting on the sideline for fear of fucking up in this kind of strange way. I'm like, is that cold? Am I being distanced this way where it's like, oh shit, like I don't want to do that. I don't want to be disengaged, but sometimes I'm just holding my like self away from not blowing up or not saying the thing I don't want to say, or
Yeah.
enacting those negative behaviors.
I
I
mean,
think it's good, but
yeah. It's nice to realize like our parents didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Nobody
no,
knows what they're doing. And every kid is different. So how can you like if we read the same book about parenting, that doesn't necessarily mean we could apply it the same way to our kids because our kids are different. So like, the only advice I give people who are about to have kids is like don't listen to any advice. Like just
yeah,
figure it out and do it to the best of your ability because like I can't tell you how to raise somebody other than my kid. You
right.
know, and we got pretty lucky with our kids like very social and like he likes school so far and he's like a typical little boy. Um so
Yeah,
I think we got lucky in that respect. But yeah, like uh it's it's tricky to know like my kid will ask me to look for something before he's even looked, and he'll be like, "Dad, I can't find this Lego." And I'll
of
go over it
course.
and it's like literally right in front of him. And so it's like I don't, I think if I did that, like my dad's belt would come off and there'd be like a pretty stern warning. But with my kid, you're just like, come on, dude. You can look a little bit harder before calling me over.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think the gentle parenting and all that stuff. It's all I don't
it's
know.
an
I don't know.
adventure. It's an adventure. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
on
don't know
my
if anyone got
yeah.
it right yet.
My wife and
But
I are
you're
lucky.
right. I
We have a
feel like you're
second
right.
kid. Oh, sorry.
I think you're right about knowing not what you don't want to do. I think that's very like honest thing to say. It's like I know what I don't want to do, but I don't know if what I'm doing is necessarily right or the
Yeah.
right way to do it. So yeah, I think that's very relatable.
That's where, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like uncharted territory. Like I'm trying new things, and I think that will be the area where I can admit mistakes and faults and go, I don't know, I tried. Remember, we went on a roller coaster probably too young, but I wanted to do
Yeah,
that because I thought it'd be fun. I don't know, I was trying to do things that I thought you would enjoy, but maybe I got it
yeah.
wrong. But that
I
was
was
me just
taking
experimenting. I was trying to take you around and do things I thought you would be interested in versus dragging you along to all the stuff that only I was interested in and forcing you to like the things I liked and being disappointed when you didn't.
yeah.
I was like, let's go do the thing you like. What do you like to do? Let's go. And maybe I got it wrong.
Yeah,
But
I was taking my kid to monster truck rallies when he was like
yes,
2 years old,
yes,
and I didn't
so
realize
fucking loud.
fucking loud it was, and it just smells of gasoline, and
Yes.
it, like, I think he maybe like likes the idea that we went, but maybe didn't enjoy it. I mean, he definitely didn't enjoy it at the time. And then you have to buy those like $60 earphones or
Oh my
whatever,
God.
just to drown out the sound and that kind of thing.
That
But
that Monster Jam company knows how to separate you from your money. They've got you
oh
on
yeah,
lock. As soon as you walk through that door, they can smell you coming. They've done this a million times. They're going to get all that money out of your pocket. You're not leaving there dry.
yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, I think it's like with the kid, you definitely want to expose them to a lot of things and then slowly let them figure it out what it is they like.
mm-hmm.
Um, like with skateboarding and stuff, he has a skateboard, but I don't know if he's ever even ridden it. Um, and like right now he's really into soccer, which I
Oh yeah.
think America's finally caught up to the rest of the world when it comes to kind of soccer with this like, you know, like Lionel Messi and the other guy. Um,
Ariaga too. I don't know.
I don't know,
Yeah.
but basically, like they've created this huge industry, which I don't think America had before. You know, it's like
Oh
it's
yeah.
every kid just wants to play soccer now, and my kid will, you know, he'll play by himself or play with like random people. If he's on YouTube, he's just watching soccer videos. So for
He's
me, it
in.
reminds me of me skateboarding, where I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is his thing, and you know, I'm just gonna go with it. Like I'll just be supportive, and you know, even if so, like he took a soccer camp, and I realized how much I hate fucking coaches and like soccer dads. I just think they're all arrogant and kind of prickish by default.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck this. But you got to do it. You
Yep.
know, you kind of just, I'm pretty good at ignoring people when I have to.
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of sit on the sidelines by myself. And, but yeah, when you have a
Yeah.
kid, you don't necessarily get to, you pick your friends really. Like, you know,
Oh God.
you get
It,
lucky if there's one or two dads you can get along with, you know, but generally it's pretty slim pickings because
a
you
lot
don't
of
know
my
who your
social
kid's going
life,
to be.
yeah, a lot of my social life is built around these, just random guys that are kids happen to, be in the same school, happen to live in the same area. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, this is good. I can do this. My wife is really
Yeah,
good. I think she's much better at being social, and also I'll like usually let her lead the way, and I'll kind of follow behind her and just say yes and nod along to things. But
right.
every once in a while, I get cornered with the guys. I'm like, oh no, it's like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how to say this. Or I don't know. I've played guitar for a long time, and then that kind of gets into a weird world of stuff. But then I like start questioning my own thing. I'm like, I don't know. What do you guys do? Maybe you guys got it figured out. Can you guys give me a job? I don't know. I made a lot of what I thought were good decisions in my 20s, and have now kind of led me to this like unemployable life.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, sometimes I look around and I think it's incredible, like how many of us are still alive. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
wow, we like lived through some shit, huh? And we're still here. And like, you know, with Instagram and stuff, I'm like, do you know how hard it is to contribute for like 20 years to the culture? Like, this isn't like, it's not something you just get like famous for a hot minute and then that's it, you know, and then you're
yeah.
good for forever. It's like, no, you got to keep at it and keep contributing to the culture if you want to kind of try to stay relevant, you know?
Hmm.
I don't know if kids understand how much work that is to be, to even just like, I don't know, to be closer to 50 than to 40 is pretty crazy, you know?
Oh yeah, Oh, I mean that brings up all those kinds of things. I'm like, I did not think, I didn't think about getting old or how long you'd live or whatever that was. I mean, his goal was to try to make it through the 20s.
Right.
Once I passed 28, I was like, okay, this is going to stick. I'm going to do this. I got this here.
Yeah, the
So,
whole live fast, die young thing doesn't
mhm.
work if you don't follow through with the last part. It's like it's hard to live fast when you're 50 years old.
Well, yeah. Well, you see people doing it, and usually it means a lot. It means something very different. Being
Right.
close to that age than it did when you saw those people when you were younger. I mean, that's the funniest part is just reinterpreting the world. When you see these, you're like, oh, wait, these are my contemporaries. There's a bunch of and the people that you thought were cool in your 20s. You see those same people doing the same sort of things in your 40s. It's like, oh, right, this means a whole different meaning. Like, I don't want to be the old guy at the party hanging out with all the 20-year-olds. Like, that guy's actually maybe not the coolest guy.
Yeah, it's weird is so for my friend Nate's opening in LA, I was like, oh, I'll just like throw together a little thing at Cha Cha, right? Like
Yeah,
a little after party at Cha
it's
Cha.
easy.
And I started worrying about trying to stay up till 2 a.m. I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And then I get there. I probably haven't been to Cha Cha in like 7 years or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was really young, or I just got really old. Um,
Or a little bit of both.
and
Yeah.
so but I did stay awake until 2 a.m. I pulled it off.
Oh no,
Um,
I have a whole game plan. I mean, it's a little nap, it's some coffee, a little espresso after 5 o'clock. I have to plan. If I know if I have a show or if I got something going that's going to run late, it's like I got a whole afternoon routine I got to do, and I'm fucked
yeah.
the next morning. Because the kids don't sleep in. I don't know if your kid sleeps in, but my kids are,
No, no,
at 6 a.m. It doesn't matter if it's a weekend, summer break, holidays. Like I know they're itching to stay in their beds till 6. You know what I mean? 5:30, they're probably up and just rolling around, waiting to open that door and come running out.
no. Yeah,
It's
because
wild.
my wife likes to sleep in.
Oh,
So I think on the weekends, he gets an hour of video games. And
nice.
I think we have to wait. We wait until 8 a.m. Otherwise, he'll get up at like 5.
Yeah.
He
Oh yeah.
he wants to. He'll like sneak it if he could. Like he'll wake up early and just start playing video games and let us sleep as late as possible. But so we had
Yeah.
to like put it on a timer. I think it's like 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. or something crazy like that.
Oh my god.
Um, that way he stays in bed at least until 7.
Yeah.
But
It's crazy. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. Yeah, I always have to pay the price. I know if I'm going to go out to something late, it's like, okay, I know this is an investment. And it makes me appreciate all these old people, or people my age, old people I say, but people my age, our age, if you go to a show, if you go out to something late night, a party, whatever it is like that's an investment. It's not just babysitters, but you're paying for it the next day
oh
too.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's a whole thing. And so really there's a lot of value put into a proposition of inviting people to go out at night.
yeah. I mean, I still go. I see about a show, like a music show, maybe like once or twice a month, and that's just to like remind myself that I still have a life.
Oh
Um,
God.
like yeah, like last week when I was in LA, I went to the Echo and I saw Tommy Wright the Third, and there's some weird noise fest it was called, but
Cool.
it was a strange crowd. I think it was all ages, and you couldn't leave. So it was like all these like 15-year-old kids that had just been there all day. It was from 4 to 11 p.m. or 4 to midnight. And then I saw Jane's Addiction the other night. Not
Oh
the
shit.
infamous show where the blow up happened. I saw
Yeah.
him in New York, and Perry Farrell was terrible.
I saw clips of that. They would play the Seaport.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And there
That's
was
rough.
already like the band was like carrying the whole show, and people were pissed because they had driven in from New Jersey or Delaware, and they bought the tickets like when they first went on sale for like probably $130, and like yeah, it's like and I'm sure Jane's Addiction. I mean, you really feel bad for Love and Rockets because you're like, I don't know how that payment structure works. Like, because they have a whole like, there was still a lot of that tour left, and Jane's Addiction just broke up. So you're like, how does Love and Rockets get paid? But
Yeah, hopefully there's something in there. They're going to get some portion of it or something, or reschedule for their own headline stuff.
have you ever
Yeah,
gotten into a fight on stage?
Oh God, yeah. Dean and I got into it first No Age UK tour. We were opening for Mika Miko, his girlfriend's band at the time. And this was 2007. And this was prior to me getting sober. And we had some kind of fucked up thing where it was like we had to load in at like noon or something. There was some weird thing with the pub or the venue. Like we had to sound check at like noon, but we didn't play till like 9 or something like that. Yeah. So we were basically in a pub from like noon till 9 o'clock, and I had no throttle on what that was. Normally, you get to a club at like 7 and you go on at 8 or something, because we were opening. So, an hour of hanging out at a pub or bar or whatever, it was fine. But this was now like going on over like 5 hours of just like dicking around and being bored inside of a bar all day. And these kids from the UK that were fans, were just hanging out and like, have you ever tried vodka and Diet Coke? I was like, no, tell me more. This sounds intriguing. What kind of sophistication do you guys have over here? What is this about? And so I was plastered and playing very badly, and Dean got pissed and was fucking with me on stage, and I got annoyed. I got annoyed of him being annoyed with me, and so I threw the guitar at his face, and then he jumped over the drums, and I jumped over the drums. That was the best version of that.
Right. It sounds good. So, I never got to see one of those.
No. I mean, this was like, this happened once, and I quickly understood, like, oh, yeah, this was all my fault. Like, I was clearly, I give the preface of being at a bar all day, having stuck at a bar all day, as if that's some kind of justification, but only a drunk like me would see the logic in that. Like, go for a walk, or play some cards, read a book. Like, no, I'm at a bar. That's the only thing I can do for 5 hours. You don't understand. I was like basically like a gorilla let loose in a nursery school. It's like, no, he's not gonna eat bananas. He's gonna rip all the kids' heads off. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, it's weird because I think about all those times, like, like I've traveled to Australia or Japan, and instead of like going and doing shit, you just like go to the bar.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it's like, it's weird how much time one can spend in a bar. And I still drink, but I don't like going out. Like, so if I go to a bar, it's like literally for a beer. Mm-hmm. And then I look around, I'm like, what am I even doing here? Like, and there's, it's interesting.
That's a decent brain. I mean, that's the appropriate kind of response, I think. Because bars are not as interesting as I don't know, as people think they are, or as I thought they were at that age. You realize, like, especially if you're not just getting,
but also like if you're
trying to have sex with strangers, it changes the temperament or the temperature of the bar
that's
pretty quick.
The thing is, like, obviously, like, I'm married, and I don't know why, but sometimes I'll go to the bar, like if my phone has to charge or something, I'll like leave it at home and just go and have a drink. And if you're not at the bar staring at your phone, if you're just like looking around, people think you're a real creep. Like they're like, who the fuck is this guy?
I haven't even thought
looking
about that.
around the bar,
just like not absorbed in his own misery.
Yeah, wow. Because most people are either there with friends or they're looking at Instagram or whatever.
That's so funny, yeah.
There's no more like small talk or like random interactions like that we grew up with.
Yeah. Normally there'd be a sports game on something on there, and if I didn't know what it was, you could at least like mimic the shit talking that other people were doing and kind of get along for an hour.
Yeah, for me, there's one bar by my house. It's like pretty much just like an old man bar. But at the times I go from like, around like 7 or 8 o'clock. I don't go late and I don't go early. But a good time at the bar is if they're playing like Pawn Stars or like American Pickers, and I get to just watch a show for a half an hour. That's fantastic.
That sounds fun.
Because like at your house, I don't watch my television unless my kid is watching television. It's like everything's
Yeah.
been co-opted by my kid. So
Yeah.
I can't even like listen to records because
Same.
it's like interfering with what he's doing in a weird way.
Yeah.
Even though like we play chess and stuff, I'll put on records and like, so it is like subconsciously going into his brain a little bit, but, and then I teach him to not be shy around my records. I'm like, they're not that fragile. Like you can handle a record. You know how to turn a record over on a turntable. You know how to pick one out just by the cover art. You know, like I want him to be curious and explore my small record collection, but he'd rather listen to Skibbity Toilet. What are you
Oh,
gonna
all
do?
day long. My Spotify thing, it's gone past the point of even being amusing, but you get the Spotify wrap ups, and now it's just like, of course, like this isn't surprising. Like these are all just stinky, or the new obsession with with my 5-year-old is the Super Mario Brother classics songs, but as fart sounds. I think someone just takes a MIDI file and swaps out the instrumentation, so it's all just fart sounds that play old video game music.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you haven't lived, till you've heard, this on, and it goes on repeat. You know what I mean? And it's just like first thing
Yeah,
over
yeah.
and over and over again. Yeah, that was our drive to school this morning.
Oh,
It's
interesting. I mean, maybe
intense.
you can make a buck that way, you know?
That's what I'm always
Some
thinking. Then there's the weird
somebody has to be
self
making money
hating,
off this
self
shit.
kicking myself. Like, what the fuck? Why am I not doing this? I could be just making this garbage music, and then it just go down a rabbit hole that way. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's not hard to do. I think the kids. What I do appreciate is a lot of it has to do with the cover art, especially my youngest. Like he wants to see the meme or like the funny faced, the monkey with like big eyes or something.
Mhm.
Like cover art does matter to kids. Where I've seen it, kind of fall off. I think at least in like my generation, where like by the time it gets to a postage stamp, like cover art used to be important when it was a 12-inch record. CD kind of was pushing the limits of that, and then once it went to
Yeah.
thumbnail, I just really felt like, who gives a fuck now? Like this is absurd. So small, but the kids, they give a shit. They're like, he'll play. He almost doesn't care what the song sounds like if it's a funny thumbnail. He likes the thumbnail
Yeah.
more than the song. I'm like, all right, respect. That's good.
Yeah.
I
Like
can appreciate that.
I dress my kid pretty crazy because I know he still doesn't understand what he's even wearing. So I'll put him in like
Yep.
septic death shirts and stuff and like just weird metal shit and like whatever I feel like dressing him as, because I know in a few years he's just gonna want to wear like Under Armour and look like every
Oh
other
man.
fucking kid. So um yeah,
Yeah.
so we try to have some fun with it. But like it's weird. The other day somebody was like, does your kid actually listen to Slayer? And I was like, yeah, he does. like my kid likes the Melvins. Like
Oh,
he
amazing.
likes like anything that's kind of bass heavy or like drums. He takes drum lessons. He's not very
Amazing.
good, but like yeah, he probably listens. I'm looking at my record. I
Yeah.
have a floor full of records right now because I just started doing my radio show again.
Oh, fun.
Um,
Is it on NTS?
no, it's on the Lot Radio, which
Oh,
is
okay.
like sort of like NTS, but it's in Brooklyn.
I
And
remember that. I remember when that
yeah,
popped up.
so I did it for 7 years, and it was like twice a month. Then it went down to once a month, and basically, I was like, I had my gallery. I have like my normal job, which is like kind of almost 5 days a week, and then my gallery was Thursday through Sunday, and then I had a radio show that was like at least once a month. And so I had to start like cutting back on things because I couldn't even like see my kid really. It's like I just
Right.
had too much shit going on. And so the radio show was the thing I stopped.
Well, especially when you look at like when you say you have too much shit going on, it's like, but too much shit that doesn't pay. That's
Oh
the thing
yeah.
that I find myself. It's like I have only so much time to take on non-income projects. Like people, can you do this? Can we do that? I'm like, there's a few hours of the day I have, from dropping the kids off to picking them up. And if I'm not
Yeah.
making some kind of money in those times, like I'm just it's as fun as it sounds to do whatever it is you're asking me to do. Like I gotta I gotta reserve that time for something that brings some kind of money in.
Yeah. And that, again, I think goes back to this weird like compulsion to contribute, right? Like this idea
Mm-hmm.
of like, I need to be doing something. And we'll do that at like our own expense. Like we don't
Right.
even want to do it, but we feel like we need to do it to be a good person or this or that. And so
I've coined a term. Sorry to interrupt, but I've coined a term on this show. It was with this woman LG from Thelma and the Sleaze. That I had to admit that I was a noise artist, much like in a 12-step kind of way. And I realized like being a noise musician is something akin to an addiction. Like it doesn't not only does it not make me money, it costs me money. Like the amount of equipment I buy and the amount of time I spend in weird sweaty basements or like
yeah,
galleries with other like sweaty weirdos like me, and we're all just wasting time and money together. But I have a compulsion. I'm compelled to do it, and it's like it was something I had to admit. I'm a noise artist anonymous. It's like I spend way too
yeah,
much money and time in this thing that makes I don't even know if I'm happy doing it. Like I don't. That's the worst part about it. It's like, well, if I could see if this makes you happy, if it's a hobby or something like that, I'm like, I don't even know if it is. But
yeah.
I can't stop doing it.
That's how I felt about having an art gallery where um, I like had to like seriously ask myself like, why was I even doing it? Like we didn't make any money. We lost money. Once my wife heard how much money we lost, and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's the art world. Like, not everyone makes
Yeah.
money."
Oh.
But like, for me, so basically, I worked at like a kind of blue chip gallery in Chelsea,
Hmm.
and then I worked there for like 5 years or something, and during the pandemic, they fired everybody, right?
That's nice.
But
Yeah.
I already had this other job that was pretty secure and I could survive off. And so I was like, and then, during the pandemic, everyone left New York. Like, New York was great at the beginning. It was like empty and awesome. And so I was able to find this little gallery space on St. Mark's, and I did that for a year. And then I moved down to the Lower East Side, and I did that for another 2 years. So I had my gallery public access for 3 years. And I thought, because I grew up feeling like an outsider from the art world and I didn't really fit in, so I wanted to create a space that was super welcoming to young people and like made them want to go see art shows, right? Um, so I really like, I didn't necessarily even program art that I wanted to see. I programmed it for the audience, thinking, what do young kids, what would they like to see? Um, But two things that came out of that. One, I was like, am I ignoring my own kid to provide this for these other kids? Like, I'm not even seeing my own kid because I'm there Saturday and Sunday. And when even between shows, you're installing or deinstalling or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, I just want to hang out with my kid. Um, and then the other thing, I was like, why isn't a 22-year-old doing this? Why isn't somebody who can stay up until 4 in the morning talking with their friends, just bullshitting, and they have all the time on their side? And I was like, a young person needs to be doing this. I shouldn't feel the need to be doing this for young people. Um, so, so I quit my radio show, then I quit my gallery. And the radio show thing I missed, my gallery, I don't miss at all. It's like, I don't know. I'm pretty good at quitting stuff. Like I'm happy I did it. Like right now, I'm like you'll see I'm eating a lot of toothpicks because I've been
Classic.
like nicotine free for like a week.
Good job.
But like
I'm great
no,
at quitting that stuff. I've quit hundreds of times. It's the best
yeah.
thing to quit.
Uh, so it's like, yeah, I'm able to walk away from things pretty cleanly. and not really regret it so much. And my gallery is like a pretty good example of that. Like I didn't realize how the other half lived. Like I was like,
Free
oh, you
time.
don't have
Yeah.
to work 7 days a week. You can go away on the weekends if you feel like it, kind of a thing. Like even this little trip to Los Angeles for 2 days, I wouldn't have been able to do that last year. You know, I didn't have
Yeah.
2 days. So
Yeah, it's a funny one. A lot of projects that I'll take on, or as I approach things, I love to see what the what the like the short term is, and then the long term, in the sense that like let's give this 6 months and see where it goes. Being realistic about how much time I can contribute to something. Like, okay, I want to give this a year. I want to give this 6 months. Like, and then at that point, whether it's quitting or whether it's just going, I see where the project's at. Or I've fulfilled my commitment of time, or blood, sweat, tears, whatever it is. Like, this is all I have to give. It's part of that, like just kind of seeing where the before it rolls into a point of like, oh, now I resent this thing. Now I'm pissed.
right,
Like now this is like if I bow out before I get mad, it's a success. Like
yeah,
once I'm doing this thing that nobody asked me to do, and then I can become mad about it. I'm like, why are you mad that you volunteered to do this? This is of your own making. And now you're just mad at the world for having to do this thing that nobody asked you to do. It's
yeah.
that
That was
classic
like
moment.
for me in the gallery, like if I kept doing it, like people think it was a good gallery and people talk about it fondly. And I think the longer I would have tried to hold on to it, the less that would happen. Like people, because like, again, like I paid all my artists because so basically the way I ended up in the art world was that I was the out of work actor guy hanging out with artists in New York. Like none of us had a 9 to 5 job, so we would just
Yeah.
party all day, and they would make shit, and I think at some point I was like, how do I contribute to this conversation? And it was like, well, I'll just start a gallery. Like I'm not a visual artist, but I like people who make art, and I can sit in a room with art all day and like whatever. So that was my way of like justifying hanging out with these artists, was to start a gallery. And then it just kind of took over like, a decade of my life or something. But
There's a lot worse things you could have been doing with that decade. I mean, that's not a
I mean,
that's
I
not a
was
bad
doing
thing.
all the bad stuff too, I was like, again, like, it's not about how many people died, it's about how many people survived. And you're like, damn, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, how did you first get into acting? I don't know this story, this part of your life.
there's no story
Yeah.
to it. That's
Oh,
that's the
oh,
weird thing. Is basically I met Larry Clark when I was like 14, I think. So before they started making kids, they knew what it was going to be. Like Larry had this idea. Uh, so okay, so I'll try to make it a short story. So basically, Larry Clark is teaching a photography workshop in Santa Cruz, California. And he said it's like a bunch of like old ladies who are just like shooting still lifes, very like kind of boring. And there was one kid who happened to be Tobin Yeeland, was in Larry's class. And Tobin knew who Larry was and his books. And Larry started looking at his skate photography. And he's like, oh, this is interesting. But like, where's the photos of the kids hanging out? And like, because Tobin was just showing him like action photography of people like
yeah.
skating around San
Skate
Francisco.
photography. Yeah.
And Larry's like, no, I want to know more about the scene. So Tobin introduced him to like Mickey Reyes and Mark Gonzalez and Julian Stranger, like all the best dudes. And Larry was like, oh, this is cool. Like he taught himself how to skate at like 50 years old and shit. And so then Larry came back to New York and he's like, oh, I have this story. And he found Harmony. Corinne at the time was 19. He found Harmony and explained the story to him, and Harmony went and wrote the script in like 3 weeks or something. Harmony bagged it out. And then they got money and stuff. So Larry had basically been hanging out with skaters for like 2 years at this point. And so he always said like I was like the angriest kid on a skateboard he'd ever seen or something. Like I'd always be throwing my board and cursing and just like throwing tantrums or whatever. And my voice is so crazy, like it stood out.
And you were just a kid growing up in New York and skating.
Well, I grew up in Jersey.
Okay.
So basically where I grew up, it's a town called West Orange. It's like maybe 30, 40 minutes outside of the city. And so we would either take the PATH train, which is like a subway that connects New York and New Jersey, or you just take the bus. I mean, we didn't have any money, so we get to the city the cheapest way possible, like, you know, which is probably like the bus to the PATH, which would cost about $4 round trip, something like that. But I would come to the city at least like every weekend, you know, and then slowly start cutting school and going on weekdays and shit. And at that time, the scene really centered around like Washington Square Park and like Astor Place, Union Square. So, yeah, so I started coming to the city by myself when I was like 12. And by the time I was 14, I was kind of just here. And like, so they started doing the auditions for kids, which is weird. I've seen this flyer for the auditions for kids, and there's a picture of me on it.
Oh,
But
shit.
like, I wasn't like in the movie at that point, so I don't know why there would be a photo of me on the audition flyer that was like taped all over New York.
They were looking for a Leo Fitzpatrick type.
Well, they just wanted to use skaters. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Like it was all skaters. Like Harold Hunter was always Harold Hunter.
Yeah.
This guy Stephen Callas was supposed to be in the movie, but he went to jail before they could get him. So like, you know, there was like skateboarding was the backbone of that movie from the very beginning, and so basically when I went in for the audition was weird. It was like 5 to like 10 kids sitting in a room talking about like their sexual experiences. Like, and you know, these are all teenage kids. So they're basically lying or bragging or making shit up. So it's sort of a form of acting already where it's like all these kids like, yeah, fuck mad girls, blah, blah, blah. Like I'd only had sex maybe once at that point. Like, and it was probably terrible and like didn't know what I was doing.
You're a child.
So they had this person who's going to play the Telly character already. Like they knew who it was. And in the year to 2 years it took them to get money and everything put together, he had like gone through this like drastic like change via puberty. Like he gotten like too old looking or something. So he was no longer in the film. Then they were going to put Kim Cardona or Quim Cardona, who was a pro skater, in the part of Telly. But Kim's mom knew who Larry Clark was and was like, hell no. And
good mom.
Yeah. And then somehow, I don't know how I became the guy. But I was 16 and I was probably like the youngest one on the set. Like my mom had to sign off on it, but she read the script and like knew outside of the sex thing that everything was pretty real. Like she was like, oh yeah, this is what you kids do. Like, she didn't really have a problem with it. And like people like where I'm from and stuff, we don't like get opportunities like that. You know, it's like nobody really just gets asked to be in a movie. And like to this day I've never really like talked about it, or like it seems like so many lifetimes ago. It's like, oh yeah, that's pretty crazy. I did that when I was 16. So but so
I just think of all the dumb shit I did at 16, and none of it was on video. There's no Instagram, let alone a film crew. and lights and
Yeah.
everything else,
So,
yeah.
and like the other thing, right? So basically, there's always been this like weird thing between New York, New Jersey, right? Like people from New York just hate people from New Jersey. I think people from New Jersey probably get hated on by a lot of different places, but in New York, it was pretty real. So basically, all the other kids in the movie, like Justin Pierce and stuff, were like, "Who the fuck is this guy from New Jersey supposed to be representing New York? Like,
Oh,
what's up with
Jesus.
him?" And so I had that going on. Then the movie studios were like, "We can't even understand a fucking word this guy is saying."
They try to
And so
subtitle you. Becomes
they
a
were
foreign
talking
film.
about giving me speech therapy or like sending me to speech class, and they were like, "He's not even good looking."
I'm
and
16. Fuck
Larry
off. I didn't even want to be in this thing.
and Larry was like, "Well, if he was
Oh,
good looking, he wouldn't have to go after the girls. The girls would come to him." So like all my flaws,
oh,
Larry liked
gnarly.
like the realness of who I was, including the weird voice and everything. Um, but you know, so and then like the first day, so I remember like basically we had this the production company was so me and Chloe are actually the last two people to get cast for the movie. They'd flew out an actress to play Chloe's part, but she got even more hate than I got. Like New Yorkers really didn't fuck with like an actress trying to drink 40s and smoke weed and shit. So me and Chloe were the last two people selected in the casting, and then the so me and Justin don't really get along, and like it's pretty obvious. And they're like, okay, so the first day of shooting, you guys, we're just gonna like, you're just gonna walk down the street and talk and have dialogue or whatever. Get used to like kind of the camera because like this is a big experiment. Nobody knows if we can act at all. And sure enough, it rains that day. So the opening scene in the movie where I'm like making out with that girl or whatever is like the first time I'd ever been on film acting. Like, and they're like, "All right, get naked," and you're like, "All right, I guess this is what acting is," And like I'm like 16, and
Gnarly.
so like after that, everything seemed pretty easy. Like where you're like, "Well, I've already had my dingus out. Like it doesn't really matter. Like fuck it." Um, so that, but then so we shoot the movie. It comes out like the next year or something. We got paid $5,000, but we could get advances on our paychecks. So everybody went and bought sneakers and blah blah blah. I think when I got my final check, it was down to like $3,500 or something, and I bought a Honda CRX with
Nice.
my money. Um, and I still worked at a skate shop. Nobody told us what to do after the film. Nobody told us how to get agents. I think they definitely liked the idea that people didn't know if it was real or fake. Like people were very like, "Oh, this is way too real for it to be like scripted," and so they didn't. None of the kids were ever asked to do any of the press. It was like only Harmony and Larry doing the press. So a lot of us just ended up going back to like skating at Washington Square Park and blah blah. But now we were this weird kind of famous. Like people really didn't like my character, and I had to pay for that. Like
Oh,
and so like I guess like luckily I have like kind of a thick skin, and I never let it bother me too much because like people were like straight up threatening me and stuff. Like they thought I was
Jesus.
the guy from the movie.
But this is
You
after the
know.
film comes out, and it's
Yeah.
a critical success. Was there not a financial side of that, or what was the takeaway after it comes out? Was it just all the socially negative? Was there anything you saw on the other side of that?
I mean, I wouldn't describe it as being a negative experience. I don't. It didn't like. maybe it like benefited me in ways I didn't like realize. Like it afforded me some kind of like street cred or something,
Hmm.
um, but like
You didn't move into a
financially, it
new
did.
house. You didn't get
No,
offered other
no. I
movies. It
mean, I
wasn't. You
literally
weren't dating movie stars.
no. Yeah, I like spent my little $3,500 and was back to like I think I definitely became more of like a loner around that point. Like I remember just skating by myself a lot. And then I moved to London for a year to get out of New York because I didn't like it. And then I really liked London, but I couldn't make any money. I think I just sold clothes and stuff, like however I could get by. Then I came back to New York. I still didn't like New York. And that's when I moved to LA. And I lived in LA for 2 years. But I was just like staying with like Steve Barra and like skating every day. I still like I remember I was Damon Wayans' assistant. Do you know who Damon Wayans
Oh, of
is?
course, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Was it
he would
for
make me
a
do
particular
the
project or just general life assistant?
I was like his fucking assistant. Like he would send me
Whoa,
to like Pier 1 Imports to get shitty furniture for his house and like wait for the cable guy. Shit like that. And
gnarly.
so he was working on a show for Fox and I'm driving David Allen Greer around in a golf cart. And he's like, "Aren't you the fucking guy from Kids?" He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm like Damon Wayans' assistant." And he's like, "You're fucking literally like a movie star and you're driving me around in a golf cart." And uh but that's how it was. Like I didn't know how to get an agent. And like I've never had luck with agents. Like I I don't have an agent anymore. I haven't really
Yeah,
acted in a long time, but it's like, um,
that's hilarious though. But yeah, just the lack of direction, like you say. I mean, it was you were there to you fulfilled the project, and then it was just like good luck.
yeah,
See you around.
yeah. And then, so it's weird because I think I've done some cool things and I've worked with some cool directors and stuff. Um, but I don't think anybody, like, the only two things people real think I've done is like Kids and The Wire, right? And
Oh,
I'm super thankful for The Wire because it made me more than just the guy from Kids. Like, people don't people don't realize like I've probably made like 50 movies or something, but people only know Kids on the Wire.
yeah.
And so, but for me, the acting thing really kind of stopped when SAG did this thing called like SAG Ultra Low Budget, and everyone on the set, I think from like the cameraman down to the PAs, like everyone made $100 a day for a
Oh,
12-hour day.
gnarly.
And I was like, dude, my babysitter is making more money than this. Like, I can't afford to do this. And that, I think I'll always be like kind of like an independent guy, even though independent film, I don't know how much it really exists anymore. But like, I was like, I can't afford to be an actor. Like, I always like to be busy. So I've always had another job. But, but yeah. So, it's
That's
weird. I still
wild.
get asked to go on auditions, and like I barely do them. It's like it just feels like a different person for a different time in my life.
Yeah, I remember the when kids obviously had such a huge impact globally, especially in the skate community outside of even just cinema. I think we watched it, me and my dorky friends in Southern California, we watched it like a skate video. It was like, oh
Yeah,
cool, like it got passed around, like people were making copies of it, like they'd make copies of like toy machine videos or something, or it was like, I think that's how it came to us. It was like, no, it didn't have the real tape. And uh and I remember my buddy Mike Urbani had a copy of it in his backpack at school and got in trouble you know, because
Wow.
we were like passing videos and it was like, whoa, do you know what's on this video? You know, because we were just like, it was like, you know,
That's
one person
cool.
would buy a video and then everyone would tape it and you'd give the tape of the boot to someone else and, you know, just keep adding on the
Yeah.
super long players. So we watched it like that, like in between skate videos, you'd come back just being all sweaty and flop down on someone's couch, you know, at someone's house and just instead of putting on a skate video, we put on Kids one time. It was like, wait, what is this? They're like, oh, that's Harold Hunter. Okay, we knew some of the stuff, we knew some of the spots, and like, wait, this is like different though. And but
Yeah.
yeah, the fact that he got in trouble still it always sticks with me. You know, it was like he had like a Pam and Tommy tape or something, or some kind of like
Yeah. Yeah.
porno tape. It was the way the teachers in the administration treated it, like it was like a porno ring going on.
I think I saw it. I think I've seen Kids maybe twice. And like when you have a voice like mine, you don't want to see it or hear it, or it's like hard enough to watch. So I saw it once. There was like Miramax set up like a preview for like my family to go see it, like my mom and
Oh
dad and my
wow,
brothers and sisters, and that was awkward as hell.
yeah,
And I think they did it to like kind of prepare my family. Like they were like,
just
"This
so
is
you
pretty
know,
gnarly. This is gnarly
yeah.
stuff that your kid's doing."
And by the way,
Um,
you signed all the contracts, so you can't do shit about it
yeah,
anyway. Yeah.
and then um, once I was living in Berlin. I lived in Berlin off and on for a year, and I came home wasted from a club at like 4 in the morning or something. And I turn on the TV and Kids was playing. And sure enough, they found some German voice actor with like a fucked up voice to
No.
do my voice. And I just remember being like drunk
Oh,
watching this thing and being like, they really
holy
found a
shit.
guy with a fucked up voice to do my voice. Like, wow. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, I'm so it's weird when I see things like people will tag me on kids related things on Instagram, and like I'll look at the comments and stuff, and people were like pretty fucking traumatized by that movie. Like I'm too
I mean,
close to it. Like, and it's funny because my kid, he was talking about like Pennywise or some scary character, and I was like, well, I hate to tell you this, but that guy's just like an actor. Like I was an actor, like,
yeah.
and because I have four older brothers and sisters, and they would always be showing me like Nightmare on Elm Street, like when I was like 5 years old, and I would have nightmares. And so my mom had to break down what being an actor was to me, and it really like has ruined movies for me. But I appreciated it, and like I don't know. I've always had this kind of distance from acting, and like I don't think about it too often. I never watch anything I do. Like I said, I've like watched Pawn Stars and like Impractical Jokers. Like I don't even. I've watched. Like I've never seen Sopranos, never seen Breaking Bad, never seen The Wire, never seen anything like that. And I always think, well, I used to say, well, maybe one day I'll get mono or something and I'll be forced to sit home and watch these things. But then we had 3 years of a fucking pandemic and I didn't watch shit. So you're like, well, if I didn't watch it during the pandemic, I'm really probably never going to watch
The
it.
ship's out on there. You're not going to watch Game of Thrones now. It's not. No point
Yeah.
putting it on. Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, so like for me, like, and when I lived in Hollywood, it was really weird. I mean, even to this day, I'll go to an audition and I'll feel bad that I'm there because I know other people want it so much more than me. And I'm like, I don't really deserve to be in this room. Like, I don't even care. This isn't my dream. This isn't
Yeah.
like my thing. And for other people, it's all they want is just to be on television once, to validate the years of studying and all this stuff. So, sometimes I feel like I really like took it for granted and it wasn't cool. And like, I'm sort of like wasting everybody's time, like including my own and the casting director and everybody, like when there's somebody else who wants it so much more than me and like they should get it. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, it's a fucked up business in all kinds of different ways. But I mean, that the idea of the people who want it most should get it. I mean, thank God that's not the truth. I mean, it's pretty cloying as it is. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's how TikTok works. The people who want it most get it. You know, I mean, that's the algorithm that works there. But
Yeah. And it's like, I think probably the only reason I do okay at some of these things is because I don't give a shit. Like, I don't put too much pressure on myself to be perfect, or like, I'm like, either they hire me or they don't hire me. I don't really give a fuck,
right, you're not going
and
on
like,
there putting on different accents and different, like, you don't have a British accent you do, or different characters like the
no, but this
you
is
did.
like my experience in the art and the acting world. So once my manager, who's been my manager for like something like 20 years or something, he straight up asked me if I had ever been deaf because of the way I talk. Because there was a character, maybe like I needed to know sign language or something. So my manager, just out of blue, he goes, "Hey, have you ever been deaf?" And I was like, "What do you like? We've known each other for 20 years. What the fuck are you talking about?" But those are the types of parts I'm getting offered. Is like people with disabilities and that sort of thing.
That's
Which,
wild.
yeah, like I think I'd probably enjoy acting more if I just got to like play normal parts. But like I always play like a bad guy or somebody with some kind of affliction, which those are fun too. But like,
Yeah. Have you done stage stuff? Like, do you go out for that kind of thing? I mean, just being in New York, I know there's a ton of like live stuff different than here in LA. But you didn't
there
go to
was a
school for it or
moment.
anything, right? I mean, you didn't have like a training
No,
kind of thing. Yeah, yeah.
no, never. Like I never studied or practiced or anything. There was a moment in New York when I was super broke, and there was like a theater company that would pay you like $400 a week or something to do some shows. So I did it for like a summer or winter, like one season. I was part of this like acting troupe at a theater, but it's pretty scary stuff. Like I wasn't very comfortable up there. And again, there are theater actors and then there's like film actors, and like I like editing. I know that all my good performances are due to good editing. Like, you know, so although like I admire stage actors, like I think stage acting is incredible. It just wasn't for me. Probably though part of it was because I felt I wasn't good enough to do it. Like, like you really have to be an actor to do that shit. Like,
Yeah.
it's not too difficult to edit around somebody's bad shit, you know. But you can't do that in real time when somebody's on the stage.
It's a funny one. I think as I get older, and just being a fan of films, there's something about just faces that just belong in a frame. I think
Mhm.
that's at least 80 to 90% of why someone's good. Because their face just works in that frame. They fit there,
Yeah,
and then if they can, say any words without acknowledging there's a giant camera and a crew behind it, then it's like, okay, you're pretty much on that list of 100 people who can do this thing, because there's a lot of people that it's like, okay, you feel comfortable in
yeah,
front of that thing.
and I
And then
feel like a lot of actors basically, a lot of the times you'll audition for shit knowing you're not right for it, but you're like you could either justify it as like practice or whatever, but you're like, dude, this is calling for a 27-year-old guy who works out. I'm like a 50-year-old guy who's never worked out in his life. Like, I know I'm not right for it. And I have a weird guilt thing with my manager where I'll just do shit just to make him happy, even though I don't want to. But I realize, like, I'm one of the people who helps get this guy paid. Like, like,
sure.
and he believes in me more than I do. So I should at least, like, try a little bit,
Oh my god.
Um, but he pretty much knows that if something shoots outside of New York, which most everything does, that I won't do it because it's like not worth even having that conversation with my wife. You know,
Right.
like, hey, I got to go to Utah for a month. Like, yeah, right. I'm not doing that.
Well,
So,
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the Marvel call, and you guys go down to Atlanta for a year and just act in front of a bunch of green things with shit on your
dude, I
face,
was like,
dots on your face.
why?
Come on, how are they hiring Bradley Cooper for Rocket? Not you.
Well, I was like, why can't I could play a fucking zombie on Walking Dead? Like, come on. Like, you know, like I think like Norman Reedus has really figured it out. He seems like he has a pretty good life.
Yeah,
If I could have his life, I might be an actor still.
yeah,
But
long lead in a long series. Good haircut. Never have to wash it. Just
yeah.
keep it greasy. I met him at South by. He came to a show. We played at a random bar, and him and Stephen Yoon, both really nice. I think the people in the
Yeah.
audience were more excited to see them than to see us. Once we figured out that they
Yeah.
were in the audience, it was like, oh shit.
My sister is a big Walking Dead fan, and she'll like go to Comic Con and shit. And she said the cast of Walking Dead had like a table for autographs, and then he had his own table. And like Norman Reedus is so big that he had like a crazier line than the whole rest of the show. And like it cost extra money or something. Like
Whoa.
I think he's very popular, this Norman Reedus character. So yeah.
All right. Midnight Run remake. You and Norman Reedus.
Is
Handcuffs.
that a
Coming.
Safdie brothers doing that? Who's doing that?
Oh no, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh
I'm
no,
just talking
Safdie
shit.
brothers is
Probably.
doing like another 48 hours or
Oh
something.
Jesus Christ. I don't think there's brother. I don't think they're brothers anymore. That's the last I heard. Is there's
Oh
one
yeah, Benny just wants to
and
be an
one and the
actor
other
now.
one. Yeah, I think there's.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like the Coens. There's you get one or
Well,
the other, but you can't get them
Josh,
both.
I know Josh a little bit because he's like a city kid.
Okay.
And like it's weird. Like they were trying to be directors when like nobody was trying to be a film director. Like that ship had sailed. Like the independent film in New York really wasn't doing anything. Like you had that show Girls was kind of like the only thing really happening in New York.
Oh yeah.
And then the Safdie brothers kind of like came out of nowhere and killed it. And now they're like huge. But I guess Josh is still a director. Benny wants to be more of an actor. Benny was the one that was in that like Nathan Fielder show. Does that sound
Okay.
right?
Yeah, that could be
Um,
right.
which that show was weird.
We had a
But
song on girls. There was a scene when Adam Driver was raging out as an angry artist who was making some kind of sculpture and had loud
uh-huh.
music playing, and they licensed one of our songs for that. Like someone had to pound on his door to get his attention because he was so emotional in making his art
Yeah,
that he was in blasting No Age at full volume, and someone had to get him to turn it
you
down.
know, I would say Adam Driver's had a pretty good career as well.
You know, if you had to pick somebody on a list of good careers, I mean, that guy would. I'm sure that guy would kill Norman Reedus's table at any geek event. You know, I don't think he does them, but if you had to judge a decent career by your geek line, your signing line, I think Adam Driver would probably fill a
But
couple
and you know,
stadiums.
I don't think anybody ever watching Girls is like this
No,
guy's going to be huge.
no,
Like I
no.
don't know, you know, I don't believe in like the what are they called, like industry plants or whatever.
Oh, right.
Like, but you're like, well, how did this guy go from Girls to being in like everything? Like, what was the movie he did where people are like he's a fantastic actor? Like, I don't know where that transition came from because like he's in like Star Wars and he's in like Woody Allen movie. He's like in everything, every kind of genre, and
Yeah. I always have to check that to obviously, you know, people are grinding, you know, but it's not just the grinding, but putting a team together who's got something invested on the back end. You know, I have to imagine that's a big part of it. Like the right people banking on you seems to be a thing. Like I don't know what his whole story is in terms of that side of things, but you know, you see people out there who are great, and then you see people that just got the right representation, and you're going, oh, okay, like who's got money on this horse to run is really
Yeah.
what it looks like a lot of times. You know, I see it with like in the music industry, at least I can kind of figure out what the band that's doing great. And then you kind of look at the team behind it and like who's got money riding on it all. And you go, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't know anything about new music. Like it's, you know, like basically my brother was a musician and, um, so like the way my family worked is like only one person could be into one thing. My mom couldn't experiment and buy us multiple things. So my brother played the bass and my mom wasn't about to buy me a guitar or drums or anything. You know, it's like that's your brother's thing. Let him have it.
Yeah.
So even like and then my brother, God forbid I wanted to wear like a Metallica shirt, he would like quiz me on it, you know, name five
Gatekeeper.
songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now like for me, like when I buy records and stuff, it almost feels like I'm making up for lost time. Like, oh, I didn't have the means to buy this back then, or I didn't feel comfortable buying this stuff.
You weren't
So
allowed to if you couldn't name all the songs. You didn't have that comfortability of just learning about music.
yeah, and so like you know, and records are just cheap enough where it doesn't feel like you're spending that much money until you realize like how much shit you have and like what a burden it's become.
Well, once you have to move, that's when you realize what records really cost. You know,
Yeah.
once you move apartments or move houses, you're like fuck this. Records and books. It's easy to become an intellectual with a good record collection if you don't have to move all the time. You
Yeah.
know, one or two
And
moves and
weirdly,
your friends are not going to come haul your books and records around. You're like, fuck, okay, I don't
I
know this
don't
shit.
really collect anything else. And I don't even consider myself a record collector because I know people who really collect and I just like buy shit I like.
Yeah,
But like books I'm not precious about. I haven't bought an art in a long time. So like records is like my one little treat to myself. Um, but I don't really buy records when I travel anymore because that was a huge pain in the ass.
oh my god, yeah,
Um, and then you know the other thing because I go see like a lot of punk shows here in New York and stuff, and you don't even know how long these bands are going to be around for. They might only put out one record, so you should
yeah,
buy it, right? And
yeah.
it's gas money to get to the next town, kind of a thing, you know. So I always try to
Oh
buy
my
merch.
god. Yeah, I've been espousing on this show. Like, if you have $20, you know, and you see an artist or you see a musician, just give them $20. You don't even need anything back. If you can afford to just lose a $20 bill and support someone's dream, you know, like you said, it's
Yeah,
gas money, it's a hamburger. I mean, shit's so fucking expensive now that
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
if $20 isn't that much for you, and just go fucking give someone a handshake with $20 if they're carrying a guitar or something because that's just how dire it is. You know what I mean? If anybody can support anything, it's like buy a T-shirt, of course, buy a record, buy go see live music. That's the only way this stuff continues. You know, talk about supporting culture and that kind of thing. It's like wow, it's dark. I mean, because I've seen so many bands who have been around for so long. You know what I mean? And the streaming stuff and inflation and all those things. It's not even that like the going to shows is hard. It's just the price of getting from town to town, and just
yeah,
eating and sleeping somewhere. It's like all of those things you realize is just like being a musician. It's like they still get paid $500, to open up for some huge band, and it's like that's the same price it was 20 years ago. Everything else has gone up, 100
right.
times except for what you pay a band. Like I don't know, we just get a band in here. What are you going to pay them? $100, $200? You're just like, oh god,
What?
even
So
more.
like, so if you, I really know nothing about streaming, and I use Spotify when I have to, but I mostly
Sure,
just
yeah, I
listen
have
to
Spotify. Yeah,
records.
yeah.
But if I play one of your songs on Spotify, what
Hmm.
do you get in after that?
I think as far as I haven't done the math, I think I did this a couple of years back when it was like what when I was first kind of discovering. But I think the last math I saw was like 0.008, so less than a penny comes to the artist. And I forget if that's the breakdown between the distributor and the label and the band, or I think as far as I remember, that was just what the label gets, and then however that gets chopped up. So per streaming is less than a penny per song. You know what I mean? In terms of what comes in and whatever your deal
but like
is with your
somebody's
label and
making
stuff.
money off this shit. So like
The owner, the CEO of Spotify, with this new yacht. The bigger things, from what I understand, and again, this could be apocryphal, but there was some kind of deal carved up, whatever, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, with the major labels and the publishing houses, it's not a most favored nations kind of distribution deal. That there's the bigger guys all get their cuts first. You know what I mean? Similar to like entertainment, math, Hollywood math, where it's like some people are going to get paid more and they're going to get paid before other percentages are cut. So if you're on a major label, you may get more, or the label itself may get more, and then whatever your royalty percentage is,
right,
that's determined with them. So there is a thing, where they're going to keep the people, almost like a teeter totter, or kind of like Taylor Swift gets more plays and therefore she gets a higher cut of those plays, kind of thing. So it's if you're above whatever hundreds of millions of plays, you don't get less than a penny. Now you may go up to 50 cents a stream or something like that. So it's not across the board that kind of way. And again, like I say, I'm not a representative of this. They keep it, and that's the other thing too with like all streamers, even on the film side and TV side. These aren't public numbers. They don't have to report these things. These are all backroom deals, and the less the public knows about the numbers is in the streamer's best interest. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a data farm. Because what they're not just finding out what you're listening to, they have all your other data around you, your man, woman living in this particular part of the country, this age range, that age range. And that's what's valuable to commercials and advertisers and marketing people. They want to know how long do you spend on their system. And, if you're on there for 4 hours and you're a man in your 40s in the tri-state area, therefore that's a valuable piece of information that they want to use to sell to Toyota or Johnson and Johnson, Skyrizi prescriptions.
I think everyone knows like how bad Instagram's gotten because of that, like the pitching you
of course
things.
Yeah.
And it's really like, I didn't even know this until like a year ago or something. Somebody's like, oh, if you just want to actually see the people you follow, there's a button you can hit that says following.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize like I wasn't even looking at the people that I'm following. Like it used to be kind of in real time and you could kind of just sort of know what was happening. And now I always say it feels like you're like jerking off without even being hard. Like you don't even know what you're looking for. Or you're never going to find the thing you don't know that you're looking for,
Right.
And so I've weirdly kind of gone back to YouTube. Like I just watch weird shit on YouTube now because it somehow feels more educational or better or something. Instagram just feels like such a waste of time.
Oh, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, they've compete. They have a thing, with like their reels where they're competing with the TikTok kind of doom scrolling, the vibe check of 5 seconds of this, that, the other thing, and you're just supposed to kind of like it releases dopamine. It's a quick palate, sort of cleanser, like zombie.
And I think we're old enough to where we could probably do it responsibly. I can't imagine these kids who are growing up on that shit. I think screens in general are pretty crazy, but this weird, like, I guess, like, you can't help but compare yourself to people on these things, and you're like, well, my life sucks, and blah, blah, blah. And so you're like trying to put together like your best life or whatever. Like you're trying to project a certain image that's like not even reality based. And so it's got to be terrible for teenagers with like low self-esteem, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine the amount of, well, I mean, you probably have your experience as a teenager is probably closer to that of what's going on now. You know what I mean? Like seeing your face reflected back to you. I think that's the biggest thing is like, that it's the narcissist's mirror. You know what I mean? Like you want to stare into your own asshole for hours and get lost, and just be told everything you're doing is great. You're great, or you're not great, but you could be great if you did this. It's aspirational sort of just
Yeah.
weird, like ego, like inflation shit. It's gnarly. It's gnarly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh
Well,
well.
that's a good place to end it. I love a nice cynical doom apocalyptic explosion. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of, there's also good, this is a great place to put plugs too. Where do you want people to follow your radio show, or are you asking for anyone to pay attention to what you're doing?
No, you don't
All
have
right.
to.
All right.
If you want to, it's I think if you just Google like Lousy Leo the Lot Radio. Um I've that's one thing I do. I will listen back to my radio shows and generally like pleasantly surprised because like for this little like hour or 2 hour thing I do, like I at least prepare for like a week, like listening to different records and putting together an actual set. And it's sort of, uh, it's like, I can't really DJ out at night anymore. And it's a completely different experience. So, because like, what am I playing now? Like last night I was listening to like White Magic and like Elliott Smith and all this weird like downer shit.
That's great.
So you don't have the same pressures of DJing at like a bar or a club. You can actually just play what the fuck you want. So
Yeah.
every
You're not trying
show's
to
a
get a
little
crowd going.
no. If anything, you're trying to bum them out. So, but yeah. So that's the one thing I would weirdly plug is like if you need to do the dishes and you just need something new to listen to, you can just Google Lousy Leo the Lot Radio because
Awesome.
that's
Yeah.
when I mostly listen to it.
I always loved your Sunday posts, your Sunday music posts, like going to church music. Those are always
Yeah.
great reminders of like, oh yeah, I haven't listened to that band in a while. Oh yeah, I have that record. Why am I not listening to this? Or discovering new things.
Yeah.
I always
And
like that as a service.
it's weird. I never run out of shit. Like last night I was looking through my records and I was like, oh, like I've never posted this record. And I generally know by if a record has a price tag on it. Because I always take the price tags off records. Because I think I'm like embarrassed by it or something.
Oh, that's funny.
It's like too flashy to like have your price on there or something. And I don't buy like $100 records, I buy like $24 records.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I always keep the price tags on my gear, like amps or like pedals or whatever I can find, like little pieces of musical gear. I love to just know what I paid for it because I forget whether, after years go by. Usually it's like weird used, secondhand old shit. I want to know, like, oh yeah, did this go up in value? Like I forget what I paid for this thing.
Yeah, no, it's smart. Like somebody told me to put the price tags, like if I peel them off in a clean manner, to just put them on the back of the record. Like I only sold my records once. Like I had COVID a few months ago, and I organized my records for the first time I've ever done it, and I bumped into my friends who own a record shop, and they're like, "Hey, if you ever want to sell some records," and I was like, because of the burden of having so much shit. So they came over and they bought 500 records.
Whoa.
And I was so depressed afterwards.
Oh.
And I was like, what the fuck did I just do? And, I made good money, but they made a lot more good money than I made.
Yeah.
And I didn't have prices on anything, I didn't know if the record I was selling was $100 record or a $10 record. And I wasn't going to go through 500 records on Discogs and like do the math,
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I live in the fallacy that I'm gonna leave these to my kids and they're gonna appreciate them. I know that's not the truth.
Oh, sure.
But somehow that's like, oh, well, this is your inheritance, kids. Good luck. And I'm just
Here are a couple pedals.
them.
Good luck with that.
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
How rad was that? Who knew we'd be talking parenting advice, getting father advice from Leo Fitzpatrick. Yeah, that was awesome. I really appreciate Leo for taking the time and yeah, just chewing it up, chopping it up. Thank you, Leo, for jumping on. Thank you everybody for listening. Again, yeah, you can go find more out about Leo on his Instagram at LousyLeo, LOUSYLEO. That's on the Instagrams. And
yeah, be safe out there. Have fun with friends and family catching up this holiday season. I'll be doing the same. And I'll see you on Monday. Bye.
Yeah, the whole live fast, die young thing doesn't work if you don't follow through with the last part.